You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. The live stream. Detroit is different in Bridge, Detroit. Local politics of Detroit. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Public Comment. Public Comment is a show where weekly we're talking about municipal politics of the city of Detroit. I am Khary Frazier of Detroit is Different, and with me here in studio from Bridge, Detroit is Malachi. Malachi, how you feeling today?
Good morning. I'm a little under the weather. I'm going to sound a little weird on the mic, but it's just that time of year.
Otherwise, yes. Yeah, I was shaking the sinuses myself. You just
sinuses are shaking me, it feels more like.
Hilarious. Yes. Anytime March Madness starts and the NBA playoffs is happening, probably some cold and flu is sinus medicine is somewhere close by, but let's go state. Let's rock with that.
I got no dog in that one. I went to Central Michigan University. We're never in the tournament.
It'll happen one day. So with that being said, all right, let's jump off into this week's public comment. We're talking about extra funds needed for trash contracts, and also City Council pushes for anti-speculation laws. Now, there's other information in the notebook, but this is what we're highlighting. Extra funds needed for trash contracts. City Council approves $46.5 million in surplus funds. Delayed twice, passed unanimously without discussion. The key question is, where's the money going? Mary Sheffield's like, this is a bit of a shock to see. And Angela Whitfield Calloway is like, this vindicates my objection to the trash hauling contract in the first place. All right. So we got a little bit of a breakdown, but before we go to the breakdown, let's just talk a little bit about the vote. Pre-breakdown, just more so around the trash, because this was something that was spoken about, saying that please let's not raise these rates, and rates is raised. Malachi, break it down.
Yeah, so last year, I think it was like the end of 2023, they started talking about this, and then it was passed in like early 24. I've been doing this long enough now. Some of the years start to blend together, but
got that right.
This was fairly recently. The council basically expanded trash contracts so that you can expect weekly pickup of, your trash, your recycling, bulk, and then they were also going to do some alley and like debris cleanup. So Duggan had said this was the type of service that folks in the suburbs have come to, that this is what they get. So we should get the same thing, me in the city of Detroit. The problem was we needed to find some extra money to pay for this enhanced service. And so the Duggan administration said that they could find a way to do this kind of hybrid model where they would use a projected increase in tax revenue to pay for most of the, most of the bill. And then the rest would come from increasing the annual garbage fee, which I think it started at $230 a year, and now it's $240, and it'll get up to $270 over the next 3 years. The problem was apparently that increase in garbage solid waste fee did not create enough revenue, compared to the projections. There was a $14 million shortfall. So the money that we had expected to collect from resident solid waste fees came up, fairly short, and it raised some concerns. I mean, that's overall, it's a smaller piece of the overall contracts. There were two contracts, one with Waste Management of Michigan that was $123 million, and the other was $88 million with Priority Waste, and that goes through 2029. So, it's a smaller number in terms of like the overall contract, but I think the question that council members had is like, is this going to be a recurring issue where every year we're going to have to take some of our surplus revenue and put it into the solid waste fund so that we can pay for these trash contracts that were expanded, when again, they were reassured that this fee would have covered it, and we can do this, in a fiscally responsible way without having to increase rates even further. So what was interesting about this is, the surplus revenue, this was the $14 million for the trash contracts was part of the overall $46 million, but it was the key kind of point of contention with council members who were confused about how this happened and what does it mean for the future? Are we going to have to plug this hole every year? And we did not hear those answers in public. Council members said that they were going to talk with the finance department, the OCFO's office, and the budget director with the administration. It was delayed twice so that those conversations could happen. And then when it came back to the council on Tuesday, there was no further discussion about it. So I need to, make some phone calls, I guess, and figure out what made the council more, reassured about this. And is this going to be a long-term issue? I don't know. But part of the reason apparently that the shortfall happened is that a lot of people are taking advantage of a 50% discount that's available for seniors and people who get the hope exemption.
That was definitely uplifted, as I can raise up now. And that is from Deputy Budget Director Tanya Stoudemire, that said the shortfall is partly because more people took advantage of the half-off discount for seniors and low-income homeowners for a lot of the home repair stuff, which, if I remember correctly, back to like talking about doing this for a minute, that was a program that had some issues getting things completed with a lot of residents as well, like the wait list and the work that's been done.
Well, this is for the hope exemption. This isn't the home repair.
This is a home repair. This is the hope exemption for people that want to get into the homes, right?
Well, for that program, so for the home repair program that you're talking about, that's eligible for people that have the hope tax exemption. The hope tax exemption is basically for low income property owners, and it's often used for programs like the one you're talking about to identify like who should be eligible for this. Well, we've already got this system to identify low income property owners. They get this tax break, and so those are the people that are eligible for. So this isn't the
repair,
right?
This is just,
you can get a 50% discount on your trash bill, similar to how you can get eligible for a home repair program if you get the hope exemption. But the hope exemption itself is just a tax break on your property value, on your property taxes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So but now I follow.
It is kind of interesting though, because like the city has talked about advertising the hope exemption to people, and are enough folks taking advantage of that hope exemption. And so Stoudemire said that this is actually maybe a silver lining. It's bad that there's such a big, $14 million revenue shortfall, but it seems to be in large part or part because more people are taking advantage of this tax break that's available for folks. So they kind of tried to say that it was, kind of a good thing because it shows more people are getting, discounts that they deserve.
I would say this is probably also kind of the thing I'm always uplifting about the amount of money and poverty that exists throughout the city of Detroit, because so many more people probably would qualify and sign up for a program like this. Just, if you check the archives of Detroit, it's different. My recent interview with Anthony Adams about like just cleaning deeds up and just how property ownership here is and who owns, who doesn't own. I do think more people would take advantage of a lot of programs, just, tracking down person that owns property, but the poverty is extremely prevalent throughout the city of Detroit.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. But I guess my takeaway, I totally agree with that. My takeaway is that there's still a lot of unanswered questions with what is the long-term trajectory for this fund? Are we going to have?
Yeah. And let's see this just break down. 14 million, hence trash, hauling contracts.
And this happens every year. Usually the city finds some surplus revenue, and before they approve the next budget, the city council usually appropriates it for various things that the mayor identifies, and sometimes the council can get something in there too. Another notable thing about this is Council President Mary Sheffield said she was a little hesitant to vote for this initially because it didn't include any funding for housing programs. And obviously, that is a huge topic right now. We talked a couple weeks ago, I think, about the additional funding for Southwest Detroit flooding. There's $6 million in there for that as well. Almost $3.5 million for the Charles H. Wright Museum. They've had a lot of maintenance problems, so that's a pretty good chunk of money for them. The EV charging stations, I think, is kind of interesting too. We've been, the city, through tax dollars, has been subsidizing the creation of a lot of EV chargers around the city, I guess in anticipation of more people having them. But I'm always kind of like, I guess it's like a build it if you build it, they will come kind of thing. But it's a good amount of money that's going for that right now.
Mhm.
$3 million is to promote different city programs. So
Like the
again,
Hope Credit.
yeah, exactly, like the Hope Credit. So, and then they're putting close to $1 million into the Shot Stoppers CVI program to keep that going. So that was a big question mark: is how are they going to be able to sustain those
Mhm.
community violence initiatives? And looks like they will try to put some general fund money in there where they can, but that's a small piece of the overall
Budget for that,
right,
definitely.
right. So they're still looking for more money from the state's public safety trust fund bill, which is not been signed by the governor yet, but it's working its way through the legislature.
Mhm. Yep. So trash fee increases that will go up as you just discussed earlier, and Callaway was definitely one of the people that was against the fee in the beginning
Yep.
and still standing against the fee right now. I'm This happens before budget all the time, and I could definitely see where it can be frustrating for a legislator that controls the purse strings of the city to say to themselves, like, okay, this was brought to us and said this will be a great program and won't cost more, but now it's just costing more. So mm, that's just tough. That's just tough. So I'm big on capacity and bandwidth, and I do believe that there are a lot of capacity and bandwidth questions to ask about our municipality, our state, and even our federal government, period. And what's delivered and what is still sustained and how it's sustained just becomes so much more magnifying with less resources. So I do believe that every penny starts counting, when it gets tight. It's just like you and your budget. You know what I'm saying? If it's payday, it doesn't matter. Go on and get the cilantro and the guacamole. But if you're the day before payday, you know, it can be issues for adding all the extras that you want to add to something if it's going to cost extra. So that's kind of where my mind is right now with that. Something else that is definitely very big. City council pushes for anti-speculation laws. Council calls for action against property speculation. Detroit City Council urges state lawmakers to curb speculation through taxes, legal reforms, and new policies to help residents own property. Resolution introduced by Councilmember Whitfield Callaway passed unanimously. The definition of real estate speculation: buying and holding low cost properties to profit from rising values. Often, no investment is made, leading to property deterioration, blight, and unsafe conditions. The resolution statement: the real estate speculator often puts little or no investment into the property, which often results in further deterioration of the property, creating blight and often unsightly and dangerous conditions for the community. This definitely has been reported on. Outlier Media exposed how speculators exploit government processes. An article that was linked in your article.
Couple articles actually. Outlier's been doing probably actually like more than anybody else by like a wide, huge margin. Has been covering the impact of
Speculator.
property speculation in Detroit. They've been doing it for about a year now, and there's a lot of really interesting stories and data that they've uncovered. They have a database where you can actually go search for who the biggest speculators are, which is always good information to have. But yeah, the council will sometimes do this. They'll pass a resolution, essentially sending a letter to
Mhm.
lawmakers asking them to, draft a bill or address some issue in the city. It's not always successful. This one I thought was worth talking about though, because of property speculation being such a huge problem, and I guess in light of the failure of Mayor Duggan's land value tax to make it through the legislature, because part of that was aimed at penalizing property speculators by charging them more in taxes. So, what is the actual solution here? What is the fix? The city council didn't really suggest anything in particular, but it's something that they will probably be working with lawmakers over the next session to figure out. I'm pretty curious what
I
they'll find out.
I This is tough because there are so many speculators throughout the city of Detroit. Also, the reason I say it's tough, just being in business myself, the thought process of getting a property, how to get activated with that property, or just any large scale projects. You're thinking one thing and then the next thing doesn't happen, it doesn't land. Your notebook began with talking about the armory and everything. Well, the armory by Belle Isle, that's what I call it, but the naval armory there. And that's the parade company saying if we could get one more year, we can work on this because it takes different people to buy and be stakeholders in. I sit on the board of Hope Village Revitalization, and there are a series of properties that we're looking to acquire, and the renovations of these properties back to like the cost. And this is the other elephant in the room. And I guess this kind of goes into the Hope credit a little bit. If you're doing any repairs, you spoke to this in your interview with Solomon Kinlock too. The cost of repairing homes and upkeeping homes is going up too. Wood, nails, the labor itself, paint, everything across the board is going up. So when you start the project in, I don't know, let's say 2025, and you're going to need $300,000 to move with the project, which this is very low scale for projects like this. And from that project, and then years continue, investors fall off, investors get in, people were connected to federal contracts and aren't connected to federal contracts anymore. Like, you could end up holding a bag. And are there still people that just are sitting and cherry picking, waiting on opportunities to strike, like District Detroit, to expand in that area? Most definitely. But are there also people that really want to get engaged and active in projects and business, but it just doesn't connect? That happens too. It's tough,
Yeah, there's got to be a way, and this is why I'm curious. Like, what is this actually? What form does this actually take? There's a difference between a developer, whether they're large or small, in like failing to get something done on time and running into problems because of financing or market changes or blah blah blah. There's a difference between that and somebody who's just buying up like vacant parcels on the east side and just sitting on them for like 4 or 5 years and then selling them when it makes them more money. And that's really what the council is trying to address with this. People that are holding back progress in neighborhoods because they're just sitting on land in the hopes of like scoring a payday, right? The mayor talks about the lottery ticket, basically, that people are buying with this land. It's cheap land, the taxes are low, it's inexpensive to sit on, and so from a financial standpoint, these investors, it makes sense for them to do, but it really hurts the surrounding community. It keeps land out of the hands of people that would do something with it. Often this land is neglected, so there's trash that gets dumped there, and the property owner either doesn't know or doesn't care, or the grass grows really long, they don't know, they don't care, so on and on. And that's like, it's really been a huge frustration for neighborhood leaders and elected officials as well. In some cases, the city's been effective in spurring something to happen with that property through lawsuits. But it's a really complicated thing. I mean, they just settled a big lawsuit with Dennis Kefalinos, who's probably the most notorious, land speculator in the city, for a lot of projects that he was working on. But some of those were, buildings that he was in the process of developing, and it's just kind of sizzled out. And part of the lawsuit was an agreement that Kefalinos would identify all the property that he has in the city, which some independent groups like Outlier have done a pretty good job, I think, of tracking that already. But um, part of the problem is these are held under different LLCs, and some of the LLCs are under family members, and so it's
it definitely is the March 6th public comment. We're discussing it, and that is a problem. I see this though, like a lot of rules possibly impacting more of the small business person to climb through the red tape of this and actually opening up the doors for more developers to do more of the speculation, in my mind. And maybe this just the glass half full I'm seeing this with. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I believe that possibly opening up and expanding something that we've talked about before, the community benefits agreements that exist throughout communities, maybe communities have different boards throughout that can get more involved with all properties that are not activated within the 12 months time, that they can engage with different community development corporations and block clubs of those communities, because that's really where I believe that these discussions should happen. Because the more government gets involved, the more it seems it ostracizes a lot of the small businesses from getting involved and activating these spaces. I'm already looking at so much of the red tape that you go through to get the property itself, and the people with the means to navigate a lot of that, it is the Dennis Capolinos, whether you have the rules in place or not the rules in place. So I believe putting community more in this process, though I do know that these are the elected officials of the city, somehow community has to be more involved in this process of what's happening with all the spaces and land throughout the community that's not activated, which I know that even looks different, as now Detroit has about a 50% renter class as well. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, but community must be more involved in this process, not just politicians, because a lot of the political actions have definitely not provided equity for those that want to activate spaces. It's done the opposite from what I've seen in a lot of ways. And there are the reality of what you spoke about. That's very true. The overgrown grass. I mean, here's the classic one. I mean, like I tell people all the time with my garden is I got my compost the other day, and we about to get that 50 mix in our boxes and everything going. But the amount of community gardens that have been abandoned throughout, which is a great project, and I do believe that those people really wanted to engage. And that's definitely, with the hoop houses and garden beds that you sometimes can pass through blocks, and definitely some community want to get more involved in the urban ag movement that's taking place here. And I do believe that that could happen, but back to the water sources and some of the other challenges that consistently connect to people. And that's just one of the things to upraise. So
Right. I think, one thing maybe to look at too is just how are speculators able to acquire this property in the first place?
we already know what that is.
Well, through the land bank, I guess.
You got that right. And the land bank properties ain't, you know what I'm saying? That I mean, if you were in Detroit, for like not even just Detroit, people I knew from across the world were talking about like, oh man, get some Detroit properties. So that's already, the cat's been out the bag, when it comes to that, and that whole process, and the ugliness of that. And I still stand on what my godmother, rest in peace, Joanne Watson, was saying: illegal bankruptcy, because the state of Michigan still owes the non-resident tax to the city of Detroit. And I wish we could get some politicians that were down at 1-2 Woodward, the city county building, to stand on business and go to the state and get the money that is owed to the city of Detroit while we dealing with all this foolishness. Soapbox. But yes, we need to follow this one, because I could easily see Kefalinas and many others. You know what I'm saying? Matty Maroon was one hell of a speculator, the old owner of the Pistons. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not Matty Maroon, Bill Davison. Matty Maroon is one. Matty Maroon, the former owner. And then that's the other thing that happens. It's like, if you're Matty Maroon, you sit on Central Station for all of those years, and then you get the graviest deal ever. And you get, you know what I'm saying? It's like almost like you get a severance package for the Gordie Howe Bridge being built, to get a blank check from city money as well, connected to that, and Ford money. Like, this is ridiculous sometimes. Like, what are we talking about here? Empower more of the small businesses in this city. Black folks that have lived here for a long time, that want to get active, and have them activate the spaces and connect with community to make these decisions. So instead of the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, it should be like the Community Economic Growth Corporation, and empower some of those groups to get active and see what we want to see within our community. Khary thought. But with all of that being said, thank you for public comment. Also, we started Detroit Next. Detroit Next is a program that explores a lot of what's happening with this municipal election. We're still going to be talking about that here too. If you're trying to get on public comment, just know we're waiting until the deadline is over, but Detroit Next is not. This week, actually, it'll be yesterday. So Wednesday, we posted an interview segment with Mayor Duggan and Solomon Kinlock. The full interview with Solomon Kinlock will be available today as well. Malachi sat down with them, and this is all Detroit Next. This is a collaboration, again, between Bridge Detroit and Detroit is Different, talking about municipal politics and so much more for the election. Some of that's going to be here too, but just a little bit different. Malachi, let the people know.
Yeah, go find that on our YouTube channel. You just type in Bridge Detroit or Detroit Next, and it should show up. I think the channel name is Detroit Next by Bridge Detroit or something. So we're gonna have to probably make that a little smoother, but that's also available on all of your podcast networks too. But we got a video version that you might want to see. Just adds a little extra, obviously, a little extra flavor, a little extra visual flair in the Detroit is Different studio downstairs. So yeah, we've got other candidates coming. We got Fred Durhal coming and Mary Sheffield as well to talk about their mayoral campaigns. I thought we had a pretty good conversation with Reverend Kinlock, although he has a lot of things to, nail down when it comes to his policy agenda. Then again, it's only March. We're getting there. So bridgedetroit.com is where all of our content is at. You can subscribe for free to my city council notebook, which is the kind of basis for what we talk about here on this show. There's always a lot of other stuff in there that we don't get to. It's free. Did I mention? And you can also subscribe to our other newsletters that cover food and arts and culture and a lot of other cool stuff. So we're a nonprofit newsroom. Please support us, support Detroit is Different if you want to see stuff like this continue, because we can't do it without you. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Peace. You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. The live stream. Detroit is Different in Bridge Detroit. Local politics of Detroit.